Whales. You know them, I know them, we all know them. And when we think about them, there's typically one thing that comes to mind: their size. They're absolutely massive animals. Blue whales are the biggest animals ever, and they weigh in at around 300,000 pounds.
You know who else likes to stuff themselves?
Humpback whales, the subject of this video, coming at around 60,000 pounds. That's the same as about 30 cars. With those huge weights, you gotta wonder, what do their diets look like? And the answer will probably surprise you. Most of the extremely large whales, including blue whales and humpbacks, are baleen feeders. This means that they have many large keratin plates in their jaw that have tiny little gaps that allow for water to pass through while trapping food like krill or crustaceans. Most baleen whales will swim at their prey and gulp them in along with huge amounts of water. Blue whales intake their own body weight in water in one gulp. They then use their tongue along with some abdominal muscles to push out all the water while keeping their prey in their mouth. This process of pushing the water out is actually pretty complicated, and scientists still don't fully understand the mechanism behind it. There's lots of ongoing research into the actual physics of it, and if you want to learn more about it, you should go look at the work of John Potvin. Anyways, back on the humpbacks. Many humpback whales have a very unique and innovative hunting strategy called bubble feeding. Basically, they'll swim around clusters of their prey while blowing up bubbles and circling said prey. This allows the whales to easily eat them in one swoop. They can do this solo with up to 15 other whales. It typically depends on the prey being hunted. I only say many humpback whales because it's not present in all humpback populations. This suggests that the whales in their respective populations came up with this strategy, and others in those populations then learned it. That just goes to show you how smart whales are. Adding on to this, the net feeding looks wildly different between individuals and populations. You can see in these funny looking models the different paths of different whales during bubble feeding. You've got pretty simple spirals, all the way to insane looking roller coaster movements. After ingestion comes digestion. And as you might have guessed, humpback whales' digestive tracts are massive. Their small intestine alone is around 275 feet long, which is close to one football field. Along with a massive intestinal system, humpback whales have a multi-chambered stomach that's kind of similar to that of ruminants like cows. On the left is a diagram of a different baleen whale's stomach, and on the right is a cow's stomach. Also, on a quick side note, if you ever hear somebody say that a cow has 4 stomachs, that's wrong. They have a 4-chambered stomach. You don't have 4 hearts just because you have 4 cardiac chambers. And only one of their stomach chambers performs a role similar to our stomach. In a humpback whale, the esophagus empties into the forestomach, the first chamber of their stomach. This chamber acts similarly to the first chamber of a cow's stomach, which is where microbial fermentation occurs. In a cow, microbes break down normally indigestible cellulose from plants and produce volatile fatty acids, which the cow then utilizes for nutrients. In land animals, carnivores have little to no microbial activity, and humpback whales are mostly carnivorous, so it's kind of weird that they have a giant stomach chamber for microbial breakdown. The microbes in this chamber break down chitin to produce volatile fatty acids instead of cellulose. Chitin is kind of similar to cellulose in terms of structure. It's what makes up the exoskeleton of lots of crustaceans, which are the primary prey of humpback whales. After the forestomach comes the fundic chamber, also known as the main stomach, followed by the connecting channel and the pyloric chamber. In these chambers, the food is further broken down in the manner that food gets broken down in our stomach with acid and enzymes. Pregnancy is one of the most nutrient-demanding parts of an animal's life, and these whales are giving birth right after migrating and not eating for several weeks. And that's just the beginning. Lactation is even more nutrient-demanding than pregnancy. We can look at America's favorite lactator, the dairy cow, to see this pretty clearly. This chart shows how lactation causes a drastic reduction of a cow's weight, represented by the small dotted line, and it simultaneously causes them to increase their food intake a ton, as seen on the large dotted line. But humpback mothers can't increase their intake, and they have to undertake the longest migration in the mammal world while protecting that infant that they are nursing. This would be like a human running an ultramarathon, popping out a baby, and then running a second ultramarathon while caring for that baby, and that whole time they eat nothing. Also, if you're wondering how whales are able to effectively breastfeed in the water, it's because their milk is extremely high in fat. This chart shows the composition of different mammals' milks, and you can see the major outlier is the whale and seal's milk fat percentage. It is so much higher than any of the other animals' milk fat, And that's because fat is hydrophobic, and so it helps keep the milk together in the water. And fat is also very important for thermoregulation, so it's important for the calves to put on lots of fat before reaching cooler waters. Anyway, back on a migration. What allows humpbacks to go through this arduous process is to build up tons of fat stores. Like I mentioned earlier, that entire feeding season, they're just building up fat. Thousands of pounds of fat. That fat is then burned and utilized throughout their whole journey. It's estimated that a normal adult humpback male, so a humpback that doesn't even have to deal with raising a child, will lose about 25% of their body weight over the entire trip. 25%! Without even lactating. Imagine how much a lactating mother must lose. Now, you must be thinking, why even go through all that trouble? Well, there's actually a variety of proposed reasons why whales go through these intense migrations, but I'll talk about the main ones. The first reason is that the high latitude waters they occupy during the feeding season become much more uninhabitable the rest of the year. During the winter, there's much less sunlight. Some humpbacks even live in areas that experience over 24 hours of darkness in the winter, and that just kind of cripples the entire food chain. The normally abundant waters have much less food for the whales, and it's even colder, which requires more energy, so it helps for them to go to warmer waters. Additionally, those more equatorial waters are just generally much safer. There's less predation risk, and the water is warmer, which is especially important for newborns who can't thermoregulate as well as the adults. It's a crazy journey, but it just goes to show what impressive animals whales are.